Dr. Aniketh Venkat Raman, can you give us a little bit of intro about what you do so that we get started on this curiosity podcast?
Sure. So, first of all, thank you guys for having me. I'm Dr.
Pleasure.
Aniketh Venkat Ram. I'm a cosmetic plastic surgeon based in Bangalore. I did my medical training in India, and then I am mainly in Bangalore actually, and then I went abroad to do some fellowships in cosmetic surgery. I trained in Dubai, Belgium, Istanbul, and USA, and then I came back, and now I'm in practice at 3 locations in Bangalore, and I mainly deal with cosmetic plastic surgery, pretty much from head to toe.
Okay.
And apart from other things, I'm an avid podcaster, so a podcast listener. So I'm quite happy to be part of one finally. I always wondered what I would sound like on one. So, so
Is
I'm
this your
glad to be
first
part of
podcast?
this.
Like, do we have that honor?
Yes, you are.
Oh, perfect. Very great.
Perfect, perfect.
Uh,
Yeah.
All right. So, Doc, my first question basically is like we always view cosmetic surgery as something which is changing the way God made you. I mean, not me personally, but just that is one God made.
You don't believe in God, no?
I don't believe in God, but that's
Yeah.
for a different thing. But right, like you came in like this, then maybe you should go out like this. But I don't think it's that much fairer for me to be, like wearing glasses and then saying that no, cosmetic surgery is not cool. Can you give us a little bit insight into why people come in for their cosmetic surgery requests? Is it like, what exactly do the people sound like? If you can give us some insight into that.
Yeah, sure. So this is a common misconception that cosmetic surgery is vanity surgery, or that it is not necessary, it's frivolous. And this is one of the labels that cosmetic plastic surgery has been stuck with. And well, I can't say that that is true. I mean, cosmetic surgery, it might seem unnecessary or frivolous to one person, but for the person who wants it, it might seem extremely essential and extremely necessary. So coming back to the point of changing what God gave you, for example, another part of plastic surgery is cleft lip surgery. A
Okay.
cleft lip is something that God gave you, but if you can improve that, why wouldn't you? So similarly, if someone has like a really bad nose that is affecting how they look, it can really be affecting their self-confidence, how they perceive themselves, how they interact with other people in the world. It might not seem very important to you, but that is something that's affecting their literally every single day of their life. And if that's something that can be improved and improve their self-confidence, why not? I mean, it is their choice, and as long as they're informed adults taking informed decisions, people should be free to do what they want for their betterment. And the mental component of this, the mental health component of this, with regards to self-confidence, with regards to body image, that it's difficult for someone else to put themselves in someone else's shoes. Your body image is different from someone else's body image. So to each his own. That's ultimately the lesson here.
But there must be some sort of line, right? Where I don't know if there's a line like this. There, what I'm trying to say is maybe something is like there is what they say, right? There's something for everyone's need, but there's not something for everyone's greed.
Agreed.
We have seen lots of plastic surgeries gone wrong. Do you think that blame lies on the patient or the doctor, or is that a fair question at all?
No, that is a fair question. I agree with you that we're not in a situation where we just do whatever the patient asks us to do. We need to do whatever the patient wants, provided it's in their best interest, provided that what they're asking for is something that is reasonable and something that is likely to benefit them. So here, like, for example, whenever any patient comes to me with any kind of request, I pretty much judge two things. One, am I qualified and good enough to give them what they are wanting? Second, if I am, should I do it on this patient? Now, that second part becomes a little bit more tricky. That's where you need to assess the patient, you need to, one, assess their mental state, and two, assess the reasons for asking for the procedure that they're asking for. For example, if a person, let's say, has recently undergone a divorce, and they're coming looking for cosmetic surgery, that is something that I would maybe take a step back and see whether they're doing this for the right reasons. Ultimately, cosmetic surgery should be done because the reason should be internal. It should not be external. It should not be because someone else is telling you to do it. For example, we get many cases where a spouse is more than the patient, the spouse wants something done on the patient.
Oh.
And that's not a good idea. So the request, the desire should come from within, and having come from within, that should be a reasonable desire, and it should not be something that is kind of extreme. So if any of these, if I feel like any of these criteria are not being met, or if something is crossing the line somewhere, then in my judgment, I would say no, I don't think this is the right choice for you.
Okay, so how do you that, like
So
that,
doctor, in the
yeah, I mean, let me just finish, Andy.
yeah.
Okay, so just wondering that, I mean, that must be such a gray area for you, right? Like, how do you sort of
It
judge
can be tricky. It can be tricky, definitely can be tricky, because obviously it's a spectrum. There is no it's not binary, it's not yes or no.
Okay.
There is a spectrum, and somewhere on that spectrum you have to make your judgment, and that is where the experience of a plastic surgeon does come into play. So it is tricky. There are actually, like, there are some things that you do look for. For example, some of the red flags might be if someone is immature, if someone's a little obsessed, if someone's a little narcissistic and perfectionist. So for example, as a cosmetic surgeon, I can make things better. I can't make things perfect. I mean, God in all his infinite wisdom doesn't make things perfect. So who am I to say that I can make things perfect? So there are these things that we look for to evaluate a patient's desires and ambitions, and hopefully in most cases we're able to make the right call. And if at all we feel that we are not able to judge a person properly, we might seek an outside help. We might seek in, like, for example, a psychiatrist's opinion. I mean, these are rare cases. We're talking about like some extremes over here, but there are situations where those kind of things might come into play.
Okay. So doctor, generally you did speak about the misconception about plastic surgery and things like that, or cosmetic surgery in general. So when you look at it, what are the major ones that you do work on? Like I'm sure most of them are not frivolous. Like you gave some examples. So what are the major most common ones that you do sort of encounter in your day to day?
Sure. So the first misconception is with regards to plastic surgery itself. It's that a lot of people think that plastic surgery is all just nose jobs and boob jobs. Plastic surgery as a field has a wide range. Cosmetic surgery is one part of it. You also have hand surgery, you have burn surgery, you have cleft surgery, you have cancer reconstruction. So all of this comes under the umbrella of plastic surgery. Now, within that umbrella, my niche is in cosmetic surgery. So in cosmetic surgery, as I said, the most common misconception is that it is very frivolous or vanity surgery or unnecessary surgery. Now here, let me give you an example to illustrate why I feel like there is a misconception. I had a patient who was maybe like early 20s, a girl who wanted a rhinoplasty. She felt that her nose was not in proportion with her face. And when she came into my office, like, she was very shy, very reserved, hardly spoke much. And I could see that this was something that was bothering her, and I felt that I could execute what she wanted. And thankfully, it went well. She was very happy with the result. Now, after the result, her entire personality changed. She became so much more extroverted, so much more outgoing. She has a very successful Instagram page now with thousands of followers. And it was literally, it was quite amazing for me. And this was quite early on in my career. And that, for example, this one case is something that really opened up my eyes to what kind of impact a seemingly cosmetic improvement can make in a person's life. Because the cosmetic thing on the outside might not seem big, but the mental impact of that, we have no idea of knowing what that impact is.
Yeah, that's true. So then are you worried when there is all this talk of, like, let's not worry about beauty? Do you think that let's not worry about, what is there on the outside? Let's worry about what is there. Do you think that is going to eat up into your business?
Now, see, more than worrying about what is on the outside, a lot of the point I'm making is a lot of what my surgery accomplishes helps the patient on the inside. It helps the patient on the inside in terms of how they view themselves. This is what I mean by saying that the desire should be internal. This is what I mean by saying that the desire for getting the surgery should not be to get compliments from others. It should be for you to feel good about yourself. That is the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay, within the same line of thought. So we've often, something that has been a lot more discussed these days is these Instagram and filters, and how the what they call the idea of
Augmented
beauty is
reality.
maybe set in a different, the beauty identity is changed into something like, the filter makes your cheekbones sharper and things of that nature.
Mhm.
Has this made any impact in in your field, and moreover mental health side of this, like to want to look like that? So has that also been a severe impact?
I would say it is definitely changing things. I mean, one thing with Instagram is, so there are two components to social media. One is in terms of your exposure, where you're able to see what people are doing from all across the planet.
Mhm.
And in that sense, it has been very empowering for patients. I feel patients nowadays are more well informed, well read, well researched than ever before, because they're able to see what is happening on all sides of the planet, and what surgeons and doctors all over the world are doing. And that is in a sense making everyone raise their game, and it's improving the standard of things all over. So in that sense, that is the positive side of it, wherein people are being empowered with more information than at any other time, and they're able to take much more informed decisions than ever before.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, on the flip side of it, the negative side of social media, I mean, I'm sure that's something that all of us have encountered. I have, you guys have, where um, uh, Instagram is augmented reality. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not true reality. It is people showing the best versions of themselves,
Yeah.
not the complete versions of themselves. Let's put it that way. So yes, in some cases that can cause issues, where it can make people a little bit more, what do you say, hyper aware of
Okay.
their perceived facial, for lack of a better word, asymmetries, or
Mhm.
flaws, or whatever word you want to choose over there. But overall, I would say that it's not like it's created a gigantic change, in my opinion.
Mhm.
By and large, I feel like the most patients who come, whatever they're coming with, for whatever thing that they're looking to change, it's not that Instagram made them change, it made them want to change that.
Mhm.
It's something that they had before itself, and in fact Instagram led them to find me, or find someone who's able to do what they want. So that is what I'm seeing more of.
Okay. Doc,
Okay.
you talked about Instagram for other people. Like, what kind of like social media game does Dr. Aniketh have? Like, because I've seen a lot of dermatologists. They have these pus removals,
Ah,
and
yeah,
like, which are
Mhm.
sort of ASMR for some people. I mean, I find it disgusting, but
yeah,
I think I like the fact that it is disgusting. I was like, okay,
yeah.
that thing has gone out now. There's some
So
sort
you
of,
watch those things?
yeah, I love those things. Because I mean, there's some I don't know, some perverse part of my brain. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is something
I,
which is
I
Oddly
I like those
satisfying.
other thing where they put thing on the face and 2 minutes later all the black thing, there
all
are
the
dots
blackheads.
on it,
Yeah,
and they're like,
The blackheads,
I mean,
yes.
yeah, I don't know if that is true, or they just cutting and putting some stuff on it just to make you feel
I
like
think
it's
it'll be
there. But
easier to just do it rather than putting all those things. So, doc, like, and you talked about anxiety from, like, do you? I like, what does what social media game do doctors have? Like, what is it, like, what is it in this 21st century? How have they jumped into this creators world?
So the way I look at it, I mean, obviously every doctor is different. Your social media profile is a extension of your personality, is to some extent. The way I approach it is, I recognize its power to educate and inform, and that's where I use it the most,
Okay.
where I'm able to uh, educate people and inform them. So we have a YouTube channel for Venkat Center. I have an Instagram handle on Dr. Aniketh. So through these channels, my main aim is uh, to tell patients what is it that I do, what is it, for example, a procedure, what can be done, what is realistic, what is not realistic,
Mm.
what are the outcomes, what are the possible complications, give them all the information so that they're able to make an informed choice. I mean, um, gone are the days where a patient would just listen to a doctor say do this, and the patient would do that. Those days are gone anymore. Now the patient wants and should be an informed member of the decision making process.
Mhm.
It's not that you're telling him what to do. You are laying out the options, giving them your opinion or your recommendation, and the patient makes his informed choice. So with that, social media can help that like never before.
Okay.
And the other thing with social media is that it needs to be done differently according to the culture of that country. I feel like what works in America, I don't think that works over here. Like the landscape in America is totally different. So in India, the cultural sensibilities are different. The way you present information needs to be different.
Don't you feel it's
And
sort of
across,
like amalgamated a little bit? What in the US they dance and show that we're
yeah, I mean those lines
dopey
are
and
blurring.
okay.
Definitely those lines are blurring. That's why I said that every doctor is different. Each one, ultimately each doctor does what they are comfortable with.
I've seen chiropractors dancing and saying
there's
that this is how you should stretch your knee if you have issues or back. I forgot.
I see a plastic surgeon react to other plastic surgeries
Yes.
on Insta, on YouTube shorts, saying that
Yes.
this is not right, that is not right, and all.
Yes.
So,
So I mean, this is social media. There's going to be good. There's going to be bad. There's going to be ugly. Personally, the best way to
one is
use
the
it,
ugly? Like if you don't mind telling us, which one do you like? Oh, this is like real, just cringe. I don't wanna. I don't know how anyone enjoys this.
So one of the biggest issues that I have found with social media is that you don't know what the credentials of the person are. You don't need a degree in plastic surgery to get thousands of followers.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who are not trained and who are not qualified to do certain procedures, but to a lay person might not be able to tell that. A lay person might not be able to make that out.
Yeah, definitely.
So social media following is good. That's a good way to learn and to find a surgeon, but always every patient should do their background research on their doctor and make sure that they're going to a qualified medical professional. So that's what I mean by saying I don't like it when this is made to be made to be seen as something that's not a big deal. You need to do your due diligence, and this should be done safely.
So in the last, say, X amount of time, have you seen any sort of trend prevalent in, say, like you're in Bangalore, so prevalent in Bangalore, as someone is looking for maybe because of the weather, dry skin or something or the other. So is there any something that people consistently ask for, multiple people? Is there a trend that is being followed in terms of surgery and things like that?
So one trend that has always been big in India for the last, I don't know, maybe 2 decades, I would say the most common cosmetic procedure done in India is hair transplantation.
Okay.
That is the number one procedure that that is done across India, in my estimate, and it's a lot of what we do as well. This is something that's happened for quite some time, and I don't see it reducing anytime in the future. And one big reason for this is our cultural prevalence of arranged marriages. So we get a lot of men who are balding, who see, it might seem funny, but like these men, they have been rejected by a lot of women, sight unseen, just by looking at the photo. And their confidence has taken a massive hit. Really, I mean, they're like really extremely frustrated, extremely unhappy, extremely they've just lost their confidence. So I mean, that's how arranged marriage works, right? I mean, if you're seeing two photos, one guy has hair, one guy doesn't have hair.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the meeting is going to go for the guy with hair.
Yeah.
So that's because of that prevalence. These are all fantastic people who no one is getting to know, because that is the barrier to entry. So because of that, you do the hair transplant, they get their confidence back. It literally is life changing.
Wow. I mean,
yeah,
I
remember this because I was on these apps. Like, my parents had put me on these apps. Now I'm happily married. Now I'm happily married and found my own person and things like that. But while in it, one of the main thing is I mean, not that I can't handle. The parents can't handle that the girl didn't like you. So, is there any pressure from the parents also saying that, oh, you know what, maybe with hair you might be better and things like that?
Probably, right?
There is some component to that. I mean, a parent worries about their child. A parent wants their child to settle down and do well. But again, my first basic rule is, I always, even if I feel like it's an undue pressure from the parent, I ask to speak to the patient directly, and I tell that patient, I will only do this if you want this. If you don't want this, we are not proceeding. So that always happens in every single procedure that I do.
That's, I think I remember when we were working together, Doc. I think Dr. Venkat had talked to me about some target audiences where, these people who wanted to get married, and it never occurred to me, not because I have hair, but it just never occurred to me that there is such a line
this can
of
be such a
thinking.
big problem.
Yeah, there's such a line of thinking wherein it's almost like they have forced you into getting it because the universe is a little shallow, and like with just a photo, what else are you going to go off of, right? Like you'll be like, okay, this man might beat me, but he has hair, versus this man does not have hair. I don't even want to know what it is, and that's a real light on society.
Yes, I agree. And speaking of trends, the other trend that we have noticed since COVID is that because a lot of people are working from home, they are having the time to get a lot of cosmetic procedures done that they've always wanted, but they couldn't do because of the recovery period. So before, when they were going to office, any procedure might have a little bit of swelling or something like that. So if you don't want anyone to get to know, you would have to take some time off work before you go back into work. But now, because you're working from home, after most procedures, you are physically fit to work within a couple of days. It's just that you don't want someone to see your face. And now, since no one has to see your face, you can happily recover at home. So a lot of people are getting the thing that they've always wanted but never found the time for. So that is one big trend ever since COVID started.
That's interesting there. So one more thing I wanted to ask, Doctor, because when you read literature on this, there is always a lot of false or sort of pseudo truths, right? So they talk about a perfect ratio of your face, if you break it
golden
up.
ratio.
Is that a real thing, or is that just something that people have just started talking?
So there is some balance to it, in the sense that the golden ratio is 1:1.6. That number, also known as phi, is found in a lot of natural entities. For example, the spirals in a snail, and the rings in a tree, all this kind of thing. So when people started finding that, looking for that number, they were finding it almost anywhere, almost everywhere. And they've also found that in a lot of people who are considered beautiful by all across the world, like Angelina Jolie, that number crops up everywhere. So I would say there is something to it, but it's not like some kind of be all end all rule kind of thing. Each person's face is different. Each person's desires are different. And this is where, so this kind of explains why I got into cosmetic surgery, or my love for cosmetic plastic surgery, that it's a perfect marriage of art and science. There's a lot of science behind the surgery, but the art comes in the fact that every single patient is different. I can't do the exact same thing in every single patient. If there are two people with very similar noses and I do the exact same procedure on them and give them both the exact same nose afterwards, one of them might be very happy, one of them might be very unhappy, because the X component here is what that patient is looking for and what that patient wants. So that golden number and all, it's a good thing to kind of have in the back of your mind, but it's not that everything has to be kind of bent and fit into that particular shape. Beauty comes in all shapes and sizes, and 1:1.5 can be beautiful, 1:1.7 can be beautiful. So,
but have you ever had someone come and say, I want 1:1.6? Like, has that?
No, I've not had that. I've not had that. But I'll tell you what I have had. This is an interesting. This reminds me of an interesting case. I had a patient. He was a graphic designer or AutoCAD designer, something. Some field where he was very familiar with AutoCAD.
Okay.
So he had a scar on his face that he wanted it to be made better, that he wanted it to be revised.
Okay.
And I spoke to him and I counseled everything to him. He came back to me after a few days with an AutoCAD drawing of that scar. And that his entire face mapped in AutoCAD with the scar marked out in the millimeters and everything. And he was approaching it like an engineer. And I was like, your face is not a building. I can't take, I can do all these measurements and do it exactly that way. But how your face is going to heal, that's something that neither you nor me can predict. So the human body is something mysterious and wonderful.
Doc, I mean,
is there also a good left one side better than the other? Is that true? Because I've gone and checked. I don't know if there is one side better than the other.
So that can be true. What I mean by that can be true is no one's face is exactly symmetrical. Everyone's face is a little bit different. If you were to take a photo, cut the face in half, and flip it so that you have one face mirror, two left halves, and one face mirror, two right halves, you will see the differences. So no one's face is exactly
Do we
symmetrical.
want to see the difference? Is
And
it good or is it bad? Like
there's no good and bad in this. There's no good and bad in this.
okay,
Everyone's face is
you're a very
asymmetrical.
uplifting person. Like you made all this beauty and all seem like just a word in the dictionary. It's crazy, but I mean, the society doesn't view that. I mean, we learned something very dangerous today about the hair transplant thing. I mean, I remember when I had gone to Istanbul also. That place is like you can easily see those people who got that surgery and they do something and they that thing done. And I'm like, and then when I read up, I realized that Istanbul is the hair transplant capital of the world. It's is there some?
But is that visible now? Hasn't technology gone so far that you're putting follicles into the hair, right? So it continues to grow and things.
So the process is,
that
I
is
think, a little more.
so that is what hair transplant is. So basically, you want me to go into hair transplant a little bit?
No, it's just I'm wondering. Like it's not clearly visible, right? Like I'm sure if tomorrow one of us
No,
gets it, we'll
the
know
hair
because
transplant results are completely natural, and so this is not just hair transplant. This is cosmetic surgery in general. The other myth of cosmetic surgery is that it'll make you look fake and it'll make you look artificial. The best cosmetic surgery is the one that you know nothing about. The people who have had the best cosmetic surgeries are the ones you think, oh, she has aged so gracefully, oh, she looks so natural even at this age.
So
that is the best cosmetic surgery. The ones where you're able to see and you're able to make out that they've had cosmetic surgery, that is an example of perhaps not so good cosmetic surgery.
Oh wow.
So damn, maybe nobody ages gracefully then, at least.
Beautiful. Yes. So Doc, I mean, like we've been talking so much positivity all this while. Let me, be that guy. You've put your face on social media, right? Like, and you talk about this plastic surgery, you talk about cosmetic surgery, you talk about all this positivity and all. I'm sure you must. Okay, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that you must get some sort of negativity saying that you should not do this. Like, does that happen to you? Do people come and say, "Don't change this person's face"? Do children come and try to get a surgery and their parents are like, "Don't get it done"? I mean, do those kind of conflicts happen in your field?
Fundamentally, how intrusive is society?
I mean, by and large, honestly, it's my engagement on social media has been overwhelmingly positive.
Okay.
There are obviously a few negative issues here and there. I would say the worst place is YouTube. The YouTube compared to all the other social media, the YouTube comments page. I mean, it's never read the YouTube comments, right? So
never.
that is where probably every once in a while you'll get an odd comment. But I mean, that's how people are. You got to take the bad and try to ignore you got to take the good and try to ignore the bad. What else can you do?
Bad and ignore
as long. Yeah, exactly. So as long as you feel you're doing what you're doing for the right reasons, that should be enough justification for whatever you do.
Okay. So one thing that I mean, I don't know if doctors rate themselves as good or great or anything like that, but something me and Sandy keep discussing about is there is no one is born great. Like you just do good things continuously, and then that doing the good thing becomes part of your identity, right? Like people are like, okay, this person does good things, which is what greatness is. It's not like one day you wake up, next day you roll out of bed and suddenly you're great. There's no
in sporting terms, it is increasing your average. That's what they say.
Right.
When your average is at a high level.
Absolutely right. Like as a doctor, as a certified profession, right? Like I'm sure doctors, it's not easy to become a doctor. Like it's not like anyone could be a decent engineer, but to be even a decent doctor, I think you have to go through a lot of things, and especially in a field like this where you, like you said, if you're good, then they don't even know that you exist. That kind of a field. What is it that motivates you every day to be better? Like what is it? I'm sure you must be updating yourself with trends, but where does the discipline come from? Because another thing that we talk about is motivation. It's like it's very weird. It's fickle. It's there one day, it's not there one day. But there is something in your mind which you train yourself to be disciplined enough to do something like that. Can you talk to us a little bit about what drives you?
Sure. So there are a couple of things here that come to my mind. One is something that my dad keeps saying. My father is one of my biggest role models in life. And one thing that he likes to keep saying is that great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. This is not his quote. This is from Vincent van Gogh, but he likes to keep quoting it. So for a long time, I didn't really understood what that meant. But I started understanding it more and more over the past few years, where for you to become better, it's not that you suddenly level up one day like a video game. Okay, now you're level 5, now you're level 6. You get better by slowly becoming better in every small thing. You can always be better, right? There's never nothing's ever perfect. So every day you do something that you feel, okay, I'm a little better at this than I am yesterday. I'm a little better at something else that I am yesterday. So those kind of small things that add up, that is what ultimately makes you better. And there's also a Bruce Lee quote on this, saying that there are no limits, there are only plateaus, and you must not stay there. So that's another quote that I really like, that you can always do something better. You can always do something better. And in our field, as you mentioned, becoming a doctor is not an easy thing. And becoming a surgeon on top of that is an even more harder thing. So there's a joke that anyone who wants to become a surgeon has a certain amount of a masochistic personality, because it's not something that a sane person would do. I mean, for example, in my plastic surgery training during my first year, I was on alternate night duty. So I would go to the hospital today at 8 o'clock. I would come back home tomorrow at 6 p.m. and repeat. So it was 48 hours on, 16 hours off. So, I mean, that kind of rigorous training, that kind of grueling training, it really inculcates a sense of discipline in your mindset. So that is one part of it. The other part is, there's this quote by Rahul Dravid, which I really, really like. Which I've not seen anyone else really articulate as well as he has. Someone asked him that, why do you train so hard? Why do you work so hard? And he said that I'm paraphrasing. I might not get what he said exactly correct. Maybe you can look it up. But what I remember from him is saying is that when I was a kid and I was training in the nets, I had more talent than others, and there are those people who would kill for my talent, or rather who want my talent so badly. So I owe it to them to make the most of my talent, because if I don't make the most of my talent, then it is not fair on someone who is willing to work harder than me but who doesn't have the same talent that I have. So I owe it for everyone that I do not waste my talent. If you want to do something badly but you're not that talented at it, and you see someone else who has a talent but who doesn't apply himself and is wasting it, that's not a nice feeling. So I really like the way he articulated that. So there are plenty of other things, of course, but these are just a couple of small examples as to what I find quite motivating.
Okay.
So, Doc, of the three examples that you given, two is sports and one is an artist. So I just wanted to ask if you are into sports. One is a martial artist, into UFC, into cricket, or into any kind of art and cultural things, music and paintings and things like that.
So in terms of watching, my favorite sport to watch is tennis. I play some tennis as well. So actually, right behind my laptop, there's a poster of Federer right there. You can't see it from here, but it's literally 1 foot away from me. Yeah. So that is, and I run middle distances. I run 10Ks. Artistry, I'm no great artist. I find any satisfaction of art that I need comes from my job. So that quells the artistic.
Oh, you have the canvas, right? You have a living, breathing canvas.
Exactly.
Okay. Doc, we had this discussion before. Where does I think you touched upon it also a little bit when you talked about, what you will do and what you will not do. But are there any other ethical conundrums that you face at your, while you're practicing? Is that something that comes up? Because I know that you do a lot of work with the burn centers as well. Like that is something that is close to your heart. And is there any sort of ethical conundrum? Not in that, obviously not in that, but in your plastic surgery line that you work at, sometimes.
So one ethical conundrum that I have found that I would say is a little bit unique to India is, in terms of patient consent, for you to do any kind of procedure, the only person's consent who require is the patient. You do not, legally speaking, you do not require anyone else's consent. You do not require the parents' consent. You do not require the husband's consent. You do not require the boyfriend's consent. Legally speaking, if the patient consents for a surgery, that is all the consent that a doctor needs. Now, having said that, we often get patients, young patients, who are legally adults, who want cosmetic procedures, but who don't want to tell their parents about it. And that is a bit of a conundrum, because legally speaking, if the patient wants it and he's a good candidate and he's fit to consent, that is fine. But I've had like one instance where I got a call from the father saying, I didn't know anything about this. How could you do this without telling me? And what do I say in that situation? I can't say that legally I don't require to tell you. I can't. If the patient doesn't want me to tell his father, I cannot do that. The patient-doctor confidentiality, I cannot disclose a patient's information to anyone else without the patient's consent. So I'm doing the right thing, but at the same time, there's a patient's relative who's unhappy about it. So that is a little bit of a conundrum that I found sometimes. And what I tell my patients now is, especially in younger patients, a lot of times they don't want to tell their parents because they feel like their parents won't understand, or their parents won't support them, or their parents will try to stop them from doing it. One good example of this is gynecomastia, which is young men with prominent chests. It happens in a lot of men during puberty, where the chest starts looking a little feminine. And this is, again, it's a big problem. These men, they are embarrassed to take their shirt off. And this can be very inhibiting. If you're going for a swimming pool with your friends, if you're going for any kind of religious engagement where you have to take your shirt off, it is a real problem. And other people might not understand what a problem this is. If you don't have it, it's easy to dismiss it. But for those young men, it's something that's really bothering them. So they don't want to tell their parents about it. So I tell them, get your parents in. If you want, I will talk to them. This will be a much better experience for you if you keep them in the loop. It'll be happier for you than them finding out later and feeling like, why didn't my child confide in me? So if you can get them on board and do this with that support system, that would be the best way to do it.
So are there any such other things that are unique to India? Because you mentioned, with the arranged marriage and the hair and things like that. So anything else that are unique to India, because you studied in Europe and things like that. So something in that sense, because our society is still largely quite different from the West, and we are more exposed to West than almost I think our own culture in that sense.
So I would say that one thing is that that it's less taboo in Western countries than it is in India. Here, that taboo element is still there, where it's felt like it's something that should be hidden, that's something that should not be disclosed. In that sense, I feel like it's good that things are changing. And like even in the West, there are more and more celebrities coming out and admitting that they've had work done. I mean, there's no shame in that, and there should be no shame in that. I don't know who it was recently. I think it was designer Marc Jacobs or something, who came out and said that he, as a male, had a facelift done. So in that sense, it is good breaking those myths and stereotypes and stigma. So that is a good thing. Apart from that, culturally in India, one thing is that there are some procedures done in the West that aren't so common in India. That I don't know. It might change in the future, but as of now, for example, people who are a little bit older generally don't want facelift so much. That's a very big surgery in the West. It's not so common over here. Hair transplant is much bigger here than it is in the US. In USA, hair transplants, it's nowhere near the number that it is over here, because being bald is socially much more acceptable in the West than it is over here. I mean, there people with hair also shave their heads much more frequently than people with hair do over here. It's just more of a look that is accepted. So those are some of the interesting differences that there are.
So is that a thing that Caucasians do have a larger number of earlier hair loss than the Asians, so to speak? I read it somewhere. I don't know if that is true.
No, I don't think. In my experience, that's not the case. We have quite a few men who are having very early hair loss here as well.
Is there a hair loss? Like different races have different sort of hair loss patterns or different trends of hair loss. Is that a thing?
So, I mean, different races have different features in all kinds of things. For example, yes, in the hair, the pattern of hair is a little bit different. In the West, for example, then there's something called follicular units. The number of hairs per unit is more in the West than it is in India. Another thing is skin thickness. Skin in India is a little bit thicker than it is skin abroad. This does not mean that it is less sensitive or more pain tolerant or anything like that. It's just a fact that we produce more dermis, we have more melanin than skin in the West. So this in fact actually makes surgery in India a little bit more challenging, because the thicker skin tends to hide things more easily than skin in the West. So this is again an important thing that I tell my patients, where they come having seen, for example, a Caucasian person's before after, and I will tell them that I cannot take their nose and put it on your face. I can give you a better version of your nose,
of your own.
yeah. So this again, I tell all my patients this: if you compare a result with how you looked before, you'll be happy. If you compare it with some celebrity or something, you might not be happy. I can't pluck someone else's nose and put it on your face.
It's like the hairstyle. We go to the barber shop. I want this hairstyle.
I want Justin Bieber.
Exactly.
Okay, that's not... Doctor, I'm sure you've done a lot of. I'm just guessing. Have you done a lot of tattoo removals? Is that a thing? Because I know on the website it says tattoo removal. Like, are most of them just ex-spouses or ex-girlfriends or boyfriends that name that they have?
So, Ashwin has some tattoos removed.
No, I don't have any.
Sounds like it. So, tattoo removal, we do it in our clinic. It's not something that I do directly. It's more of a dermatologist domain, which is so it's the dermatologist in our clinic does it. But yes, we do get a large number of tattoos. More than spouses' names, I would say the bigger factor is amateurish tattoos. Because
then I'll need to book an appointment.
So because there are so many tattoo studios coming up now, you get a lot of very amateur-looking tattoos that don't look good, and but tattoo removal thankfully works quite well for them.
Okay. Do you ever go like, why did you even bother getting this tattoo in your head?
No, I don't ask that. So again, that would
but
be
in your mind. But in your mind, have you ever wondered?
In your mind,
in your mind, sure, obviously. I mean, it would be something like I would never have gotten this tattoo.
But not that many ex-spouses. That's little.
I mean, you do get them once in a while, but the bigger factor, I would say, are amateurish tattoos.
Okay. But do they share the story of why they got it? Like, is that something happens? That
it happens sometimes. I mean, we don't prod, we don't ask, but sometimes they do feel like sharing it.
One question, like slightly off the left field, I just thought when you were talking about tattoos, I mean, it's something that's becoming more and more acceptable to people to have full sleeve tattoos and things like that. So one, body dysmorphia may not be something that comes in your this thing completely, but I'm sure some part of it definitely does. Is that something that you see more and more often in India, especially among youngsters?
So
the way they look,
like
or
talk about what
body dysmorphia is something that does come into my field quite a bit. It is one of the things that I look for and I evaluate. So, for example,
I mean, can you give a little bit description? I mean, I'm sure I don't want our audience.
Sure. So if a person is bothered by something out of proportion to what that thing is. So, I mean, just as an example, let's take rhinoplasty, because that is where this is sometimes a little prevalent.
Okay.
You might get a nose that, it's a little bit wide. It could be a little bit smaller. It could be a little bit sharper. But the patient, how much they are bothered by it is way out of proportion to that. Where in the sense that is the only thing that is bothering them morning and night. They can't think of anything else. And it's not that there's nothing. There is something that can be made better. But even if the body dysmorphia is there, if that clarity or that sense of reality is not there, if they're not grounded and identify, yes, this is a problem, this is the extent of the problem. If you say this is the problem and oh my God, the problem is so huge, when it is not, then even if you do a procedure and you give a good result, they might not still be happy with it. Even if you give a result that any reasonable, rational person would say, yes, this is a good result, that person might not be happy with it. So body dysmorphia is definitely something that we do look out for. And the key sign there is where there is a perceived defect. The defect is not as real or as big as the person perceives it to be.
do you get these patients who've done so much research that they don't believe what you're saying, or they believe that they have a better solution to what you have proposed? Like, you all obviously talked about, the amount of work that we've done, the certification, all that work, and somebody just comes up with Google and he's like, okay, see, I saw this one on, what is that website? Where everything is cancer.
WebMD?
WebMD.
WebMD.
Like, WebMD, they said this. So does that happen to you? Is that frustrating for you?
It happens. It happens to every single doctor who's practicing today.
Okay.
And information is a good thing. Arrogance is a bad thing. So, I mean, obviously, information is good. But if you come thinking that you know everything that there is to know, and if what you're saying is clearly wrong, and there's a medical reason why it is wrong, or why it might not work in your case, then I'm going to tell you that. And if you still insist on it, then I will say, no, I'm sorry, I don't think I can give you the result that you're looking for. You might have to go to someone else. So this is where I touched on this point a little bit earlier. The human body is not a car engine that you swap out a part and then it continues running purely again. How a body heals, how a body reacts, that is a factor that has to be accounted for in every single case. So this is where a doctor's experience comes into play, along with whatever theoretical knowledge you can read. And more so in the case of plastic surgery, where it is an art and a science and not just a pure science.
So you do get annoyed.
Yes.
Yes, trying to figure out what the answer for that was. Sandeep?
No.
Oh, okay. Doc, this like there. See, what you do is at a very advanced level, right? I don't know if you are like extending your time too much. Just we'll try to wrap it up as soon as possible.
I'm good. It's fine.
There are what you do is like probably the last stage of what someone. I mean, they might have tried to even like feel better themselves. They might have tried to say, I'll ignore all these people. My nose is not that bad. I can do these things. But somehow that even what you were talking about, I found a little confusing that you were talking about internal belief that this must be done. But I'm sure most of any sort of anxiety that is brought upon you is by external people, right? Like maybe you are okay with having big chest, but
yes,
it's when the gaze happens from other people, like you take it off at the temple and people are like looking at you like, what is this alien? At a certain point in time, it is that, right? Like it is the fact that you don't want to be, I don't know if unique is the word, but you don't want to be a little different because people stare at different. And especially if it's something which is not as society would deem like this is fine, this is not fine. So there are the good differences according to society, there are bad differences. Like you might have blue eyes, people be like, oh my god, you should be a model. You have a big chest, people like, oh, definitely don't be a model, go do something else. So at the end of the day, I think a lot of all the body issues are definitely have that little external side. So if you could maybe clarify a little bit about how exactly you figure out, where if this classification is fine and this classification is not fine. Because I'm sure after years of experience, like you must have found that there are some things that are okay and there are some things that are not okay. So if you could give us a little bit of insight into that.
So
I mean, the reason I'm asking is because you are a certified plastic surgeon, but what you're doing is sort of like a psychologist, psychiatrist. I don't know the difference between them. Like that.
Psychologist.
Okay. That you're getting into that sort of a role as well. Right. And
there is a component to that. So I can understand where the confusion would come, where you have a hard time understanding this, where in one hand I'm saying that the desire should be internal, but on the other hand I'm saying that you should not be thinking about it day and night. That seems like two contradictory kind of things. So what I mean, in anything, in plastic surgery, as with anything in life, there is like a sweet spot that you're trying to hit, wherein you do too much, and one, it might not look good, two, it might cause problems to the patient, and on the other side, if you do very little, then one, it might not give you any kind of improvement, or two, it might not be worth doing at all. So that's kind of a sweet spot that we are looking to hit. So in simply put, in the most simplest way I can clarify it is, I will not do anything if I feel like it will affect the patient adversely. If it's going to cause any kind of problem for the patient, either physically or physiologically or mentally, that is like the hard line that we are not going to cross.
Okay.
Now, to answer the other part of it, so as a plastic surgeon, the most common question I'm asked whenever I meet new people at a party or something is, "Oh, you're a plastic surgeon. Tell me what you'll do to my face." It is the most common question. Yeah.
I remember
It is the
asking you.
most.
I think I remember. I don't know if you remember.
Maybe you did. I think you did. So I will, and my answer to that always is no. I am not going to answer that question. You tell me what you want, then I will tell you if it's possible or not. That is my role. My role is not to tell you what you should have done. My role is to tell you.
I think honestly, they might not.
They might not like the answer, but in general, this is how I view my role. My role is not to tell you what you should have done. You need to tell me what you're looking for, and I will tell you what is possible, what is not possible. That is how I regard my role.
Or would you, like, one time when someone asks this, just say that I'll change your nose, I'll change your face, or this thing is wrong, that thing is just completely wreck him for one time. Just like, they caught you on the wrong day, like you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and you had it like Bangalore traffic was horrible, it was raining, and then you just asked you at the wrong time.
I mean, it hasn't happened so far, but this reminds me of my grandfather, funnily enough. My grandpa passed away a couple of years ago, and before that, when I was become a plastic surgeon, he would tell me, good that you're becoming a plastic surgeon. Once you are a plastic surgeon, you change my face fully so that your grandmother can't recognize me anymore.
Knowing me, I would actually do this. Knowing me, I would have just said that to somebody, because I have said certain things that I am not proud of anymore to people who have asked.
And if you work 18 hours days, then you'll probably have more patience. You'll be like,
probably,
yeah, we should not encourage them. I lost my train. They say you should not lie to your accountant or your doctor. Is plastic surgeon also someone that you should not lie to?
No, you should not lie to any doctor anytime, because your lie will come back to hurt you only. It's not going to hurt anyone else. And the most common lie I encounter is when people lie about their smoking. And smoking is bad across the board, but smoking is very bad in terms of plastic surgery and how plastic surgery heals. So most of the times I'll ask a patient, do you smoke? They will say not anymore. When they say not anymore, that's a red flag. I'm like, okay, I will always ask, when did you quit? And the answer is always 1 month ago.
I will say,
you put 2 fingers and you're like, how many fingers am I holding? It's always 2.
Yes.
I'll be very arrogant here, because I used to smoke and I quit smoking a few years ago. And whenever now I go and when my friends are smoking, I'll just go like, what a dirty habit, man. Why don't you stop doing this? Like, this is not good for you. Just now I can sit on the high horse. No, now I'm that guy who...
Here's the funny thing about this. Smoking is very bad for hair. Smoking really affects hair fall. Smokers have much more hair fall than others. So when I tell them this, that is the reason that they finally give up. It is not the threat to life. It is not the chance of lung cancer. It is the fact that you might lose your hair.
Oh, maybe that's maybe why a lot of the hair is gone now.
But I've heard that like a normal amount of hair fall happens anyways. Isn't that right, doctor?
So yeah, so everyone loses around 100 hairs per day. That every single person, even someone who's not balding, because that's part of the hair cycle. That hair which falls off and a new hair will come up in its place. That is part of the hair cycle. So 100 hairs falling per day is completely normal. And it's because of this that there are myths like helmet causes hair fall. Helmet doesn't cause hair fall.
But that's not true, is it?
It's not true. It's just that the hair which should have fallen otherwise has gotten collected in your helmet and you're seeing it.
Oh, that's what it is.
Because I bought bandana and I was thinking, oh, this has to protect my hair.
No.
I think I saw the F1 drivers wearing it. I'm like, they have not gone bald. That must mean this bandana is a magic thing. So that's not true.
Exactly. Look at Vettel, look at Alonso. Look at Alonso, what hair he has.
Yeah, they're old also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. I mean, I can't believe I wasted so much money on bandana after bandana.
Okay, doctor, like I think my final question is like something that we discussed, right? Like this, Google phone in your hand cannot replace all the training that you've done. So what do you feel about this anti-vax movement? Because like, I don't know if you know this, but there's a little anti-vax movement in India as well. And I'm like, we have taken so much from the West. Now we have taken their stupidities also into our hand. Like, yes, please come sit with us and do this thing. And like, I mean, obviously for me it is a really stupid thing, but I'm sure they are somehow convinced, and I'm sure that there are medical journals itself that they might be quoting and saying that this is true. And I don't know if they are peer reviewed or anything of that sort, because I think that's pretty important. But what is like, is that something that riles you? I mean, what gets you angry? Like, do these kind of things get you angry as to where this situation is headed?
More than angry, I would say right now it makes me sad that we are in this stage where there is an anti-vax movement that is picking up steam in India. I mean, thankfully it's not so big here, and I hope it stays that way. But I mean, there's grounds to be pessimistic on that front. Speaking as a doctor who has seen all kinds of patients, I mean, during my training, I've seen polio patients, I've seen leprosy patients, I've treated, I spent 2 weeks in a tuberculosis ward. So I've seen diphtheria, I've seen measles. These are all diseases that, I mean, I think maybe I missed one of them, but by and large, these are all diseases that have
eradicated,
that have vaccines, that have vaccines. So what happens with social media is that there is a sense of false equivalency, wherein the side effect of the vaccine is made to look as bad as the disease itself, which is just not the case. Now, vaccines can have certain side effects. Yes, it can have. You might have a little bit of fever, you might have a little bit of chills. Rarely, we're talking about 1 in a billion, there have been some kind of serious side effects of a vaccine. But the chance of that happening is as good as you getting hit by a car when you cross the road. That doesn't stop you from crossing the road. So that 1 in a billion chance is made to look as big or as probable as the disease itself, which is a foolish equivalency. And scientific miracles have allowed us to remove all these diseases. And now through our own hubris and what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know if it's ignorance also. I really don't know what the right word for it is. Complacence, maybe, more than anything else. We have not seen this
very kind word, doctor. This entire time you've been using the kind word. You've taken the kind alternative. Instead of saying downright stupid, you're like, this other word.
Moronical and all. Just going
no, but I mean, but again, right, like in my head, I'm thinking that obviously they have not done any sort of primary research. They are just sort of going off of somebody else's.
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but the genesis of the anti-vax movement was originally traced to one journal article that was published in the US, which linked vaccines to autism. Now, that article has been debunked in the sense that the person who wrote that article was found to have fraudulently written that article without any data or evidence. So that article has been completely debunked in every sense of the word. But still, the seed that implanted germinated, and now we have this. From there, this entire movement has come.
Right, like it's not even an anti-vax; it's an anti-information. Like people who have knowledge, we are like against people who have knowledge. We're like,
it's like the flat Earth Society, right? If it's the same, it's the same idea. So.
But they are my favorite stupid society.
They have members all over the globe.
Yeah, exactly. Unbelievable. What a fantastic way to think about the world and disregard everything and take the flight and go here and there. All good, no problem. Find solutions mathematically to prove this right. Oh, I love them. So much effort.
Yes.
But hopefully that's it. Maybe we don't have any other.
Let's just hope that this podcast becomes like that first article, but not debunked, but it germinates and grows.
But, I mean, even if they've debunked it, I'm sure like there is this thing in psychology, right? Like it's called, what is it? Cognitive dissonance. Like if there are things attacking your beliefs, then you're like, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm gonna.
Their views are not grounded in rationality, so you can't convince them with rationality.
So then, how do you do it?
But is that an effect of echo chambers in social media?
Absolutely. One of the worst possible effects that social media has is the social media algorithms, which only feeds you more and more of what it thinks it's going to keep you on the platform. Ultimately, the app's only real purpose is to keep you on the app as long as possible. Right? It's not trying to achieve anything else. Everything else is a byproduct of that fundamental drive. So definitely that does affect things. I mean, that's how we go down the rabbit hole.
But then I always try to, in my free time, I think of it from their perspective, right? They might also be thinking the same thing as us. You are being befuddled by this algorithm, and we are saying the same thing, but we have convinced ourselves that we are right. I mean, yes, obviously we have science and empirical research behind it and peer-reviewed journals and all of that. So unless you believe that the entire world is sitting here and trying to create some, thing, again, but if I think from there, side, I'm like, okay, I'm not smart enough to figure out that I may not have traveled in a plane. I may not have seen the globe, so I don't know it. I may not have seen Mars as a sphere. I may not have seen Jupiter as a sphere. So in my head, maybe everything is flat. Everything is flat. Like it's just a disk floating around everywhere. I might not be smart enough to do that, but I might be thinking, if this guy is saying it, maybe his echo chamber has convinced him that this is the truth. Maybe he is also. Maybe they are looking at someone. Let's say I'm a flat earther. Sandy is a normal human being, right? Like I'm looking at him like his cult has morphed him in this way. So then I better hold on to my trust, because I mean there must be some sort of a pride might be there. Like I have figured out something that nobody else has figured out.
Yes, no. I mean, I'm sure that is a component of it, and also I think there's a certain component of like. What's the word? I'm this far into it. I can't back out of this now. So I think that also plays a part in it.
Already
too far into the rabbit hole. Yeah, this is cool. So in the off chance, like, I think that Dwight says that. Which one was that? No, there's a show called Community. In that, Pierce talked about this guy called Abed, who is a half Polish, half Arab, calling him a terrorist, and he's like, if I'm right, I'm a hero. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I'm willing to take that chance. So it's the same.
Community, fun thing. Doc, what are you watching on Netflix right now?
I saw the last episode of Rick and Morty last night.
Oh, nice. Dan Harmon, same guy. Community.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have one of the few people who keep watching Community.
Yeah,
it's a fun episode. I mean, it's a fun series, at least.
I've seen clips of Community on YouTube, but I've never gotten into the show.
It's on Sony. If you want to watch it, it's on Sony Live.
It's on Sony. All right, cool. I'll check it out.
It's amazing. It's my favorite show. The first 3 seasons are my favorite show all time. So I keep going back. When I'm working, I need noise to feel like I'm in office and things. I have it in the background.
I'm waiting for the new season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh yeah,
next week, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Is it coming on Netflix or something? No, it's
next week.
Okay, the Pirate Bay. Which one?
No. Next week it's coming on Netflix, I think.
Or it comes on Comedy Central also. I think it comes on Comedy Central a little bit before it comes on Netflix.
Oh, that's it.
But Comedy Central might be the India version, right? Like it might be all censored and stuff. Not that much.
No, it's pretty close. I mean, there's not much to censor in that show.
Yeah, but I have to take a channel and all for that. Yeah. But I think it's coming on Netflix. I saw an ad about it.
Might be the
on YouTube.
Could be. Let's see. Anyway,
Matt, it's always something to look forward to.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we're all indoors now. Who knows? The third wave might be coming soon. So hopefully enough shows come up by then.
I'm trying not to think of this third wave or not.
Yeah, me neither.
Blaming Kerala for it. But I'm like, maybe we are just counting numbers. You guys are not counting numbers. The wave is coming from somewhere else.
There's no point blaming anyone. I mean, definitely, there's no point blaming one state or the other state. It's not an easy job for anyone. It's not an easy job for the authorities also. You can shut everything down and spread the curve, but people's livelihoods are lost.
Yeah,
it's bad for everyone. It's tough for everyone. I think everyone.
It's a tough choice also, right? When people keep arguing, I keep saying like it's not that easy to make the decision. So,
I think
I'm not saying India did a great job. I'm just saying.
I mean, no one thinks their country did a great job. I don't think anyone's country thinks, especially maybe a lot of Chinese people might think that their country did a great job, but I mean, in the sense of containing the virus. I don't want to.
That approach to having a
conspiracy theories.
But look at US. Everything is open. Texas is open. They're having full stadium, sold out, things like that. So
but at the same time, there's a large group of people who refuse to get vaccines.
Exactly, it's just unbelievable. They're doing all this. They're not getting vaccinated. They're saying it doesn't exist. COVID is a fake thing that you guys figured it out.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. What to do?
Mm.
So much
I mean,
technology.
I watch a lot of the NBA. I think in the NBA also, the crowd had come back. So it felt a little, I was like, man, just across the ocean, like across the ocean,
Yeah.
the world has sort of returned to normalcy. It's not perfect, obviously, but
Yeah.
they are able to, they, at 1/3 the population, they are able to do these kind of things. So somewhere
Yeah.
I feel like, maybe our people also deserve a little better. It's like you
Yeah.
said, it's not possible for us to act like nothing has happened. Obviously, something very severe has happened, and in our
Yeah.
country, there's a problem with implementation, and maybe there's a problem with how they handle it. But I mean, what else?
No, I mean, see, it's not easy for anyone in our country. Yeah, you can argue that enough of the population has not been vaccinated. But if you look at the amount of vaccines that are being produced on a daily basis, it's a huge number. It would be a very impressive number in any other country. It is not so impressive in our country because of the sheer size of our population. So it's not an easy job. I think everyone just needs to be understanding and supportive of each other. There's no other way through this.
But
Yeah,
do
I
you
agree.
feel that
And there is
somewhat like, okay, let's just do something and then see what happens, and then we'll, take measurements? Like you close your eyes and take a right, and then okay, the right is not right, then we'll, course correct. We'll try to go left. Do you think? Do you get that sort of feeling? I mean, I know the IMA has been very critical about how the situation has been handled, and doctors. I mean, I've seen some very heartbreaking videos of
Yeah.
doctors
Yeah.
getting beaten up, and that
Yeah.
is, I think it is ridiculous. It's absolutely like
Yeah.
the worst thing that we could have done. But
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another thing that that really riles me up. Is there's an increasing trend of violence on doctors in the last few years. I don't know what the exact cause of it is. I really don't understand it, because which doctor would want their patient to not survive?
yeah,
Which doctor would want that? It's idiotic. It's crazy. I mean, there's a book that I've read. I forgot the name of it. It's by a neurosurgeon. I think it's called I think it's Do No Harm. I think yeah, it's Do No Harm by a neurosurgeon called Marsh, something Marsh. And there's a very nice line in that where he says that every doctor carries a graveyard in his mind of the patients that he's lost, and that's something that I can tell you, at least personally, it's very true. There are patients who I've cared for, who I've lost back in my training. I never forget them. I mean, that's the level to which doctors are affected by losing a patient. So yes, we understand that patients' family members are distraught, you're upset, you're sad, but beating up the doctor who did his best to try and save your patient, that is not an acceptable outlet for your anger. So that is something that really, really upsets me.
And also, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, especially when you're doing your house urgency and all, the hours that you work, like you said, 48 hours on, 16 hours off, that is absolutely ridiculous, because you need rest for your neurons to fire and all those kind of things. There's a lot of overworking also done. So is that, I don't know why that is a thing, why that became like a norm.
To a certain extent, it's simply because there are so many patients who need care. And I mean, in that sense, I think things are improving, that there are more medical colleges coming up and more doctors being trained. So in that sense, I think things are improving. It's the doctor
was it
patient
because
ratio.
of
How many
the
doctors you
lack of supply of doctors that you had to work 48 hours?
It is the lack of, more than lack of supply of doctors, like a lack of tertiary healthcare facilities in, like people from all over come to Bangalore for treatment. It's not just Bangalore people. So in that sense, there's a lot more patients that you have to see than what is Bangalore itself. Just to give you an example. So that is again, it's a situation in India and in any developing country. And I mean, on that front, things are improving. Hopefully it'll get even better and better. But whatever challenges we face, I mean, that doctor did his best. So if you want to take your anger out of on the system, speak to your politicians, speak to, like, during election time, healthcare is never an issue that is discussed. And I'm not blaming any one political party in this. I'm not saying any political affiliation or anything. It's just across the board, the political parties and the people, healthcare is a subject that is not spoken about enough in this country. And like, it's such a huge point of discussion in many countries abroad. Here, that's just not the case. So it's like the status quo just kind of continues. So definitely there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot that can be done. There's a lot that should be done.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Like
Absolutely.
they not doing anything about it, and then all the blame comes on it because doctors are not looked at people with gundas and with guns and stuff. They are just people doing the job, and you can come and do whatever you want. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like they give you the status of God, and then when things go bad, they're like, boom.
So again, I tell you, we are not gods, because gods are infallible. We are fallible. We are humans.
Yeah, but my dad actually did say that he had an appendicitis and he was in so much pain, and then he got the operation, and he always says that because now he has a scar to remember it also, right? So he'll always say, "Oh, he was like a god because I was in that amount of pain. He sort of solved the whole thing." So yeah, I've heard the same thing that Ashwin said about doctors. Although I haven't seen so much of violence towards doctors at all. Of late, I've seen more and more, or read at least more and more. A couple of friends have also told me that their friends got beaten up and things like that. So
I thought they went to beat up
kind of
doctors.
things as well.
Told you.
No, it's a doctor friend. So his colleagues gotten beaten up and all. So yeah.
Well, such is life, man. Okay. Anyway, doctor, thank you so much, Dr. Aniketh.
No.